Before I get this video started, I wanted to take a second to talk about three people very, very special to me. Lost Jiu-Jitsu, Average Adderall Enjoyer, and my guy Bumfuzzle, my first ever members on the channel. Me and these three guys, we go way, way back. Average Adderall Enjoyer, he's been my plug for a long, long time. Lost Jiu-Jitsu, this is the guy that taught me how to buggy choke. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have added that crucial element to my game. And of course, there's Bumfuzzle. He was the one guy that didn't switch up after my Beneil Dariush versus Charles Oliveira prediction video went horribly wrong. So I just wanted to take a second to shout these guys out. They all became members during my very first ever live stream. If you guys want to check those out, my members are going to be the only ones who have access to the streams after they happen. Khamzat Chimaev versus Robert Whittaker, it's quite the intriguing matchup in the sense that it seems like most people who are, caught up with today's MMA world are of the mind that Khamzat is at a bit of a disadvantage here. But weirdly enough, the odds makers have it so that Khamzat is the favorite. Now, me personally, to be honest, I've never really paid much attention to the odds until I started doing full card breakdowns. And to my surprise, the odds makers do typically seem to get the fights right. I have come across a few slip-ups here and there, but for the most part, they seem to be pretty good at their job. So let's take a look at this matchup. Let's do a deep dive. Let's do an in-depth breakdown. Let's square these guys off and let's see where we stand. First things first, we need to look at how they match up in the striking, which I would say is probably the most lopsided area of this fight. Now, Khamzat is not a bad striker by any means. He can fight fluidly with both stances. He switches back and forth. We know for a fact he has one-punch knockout power even at 185 pounds. But I think it is very, very clear that Whittaker is going to be far more skilled here. Khamzat loves his jabs, his straights, his teeps, and his round kicks. I mean, I would say those are going to be the four tools you see him use on the feet. He's constantly feinting with his shoulders, bobbing his head back and forth while switching stances, which is good. It makes it difficult to read when he's going to come in. But as far as using his feints to set up traps, it's not something he really does. At least not very frequently. But there was one sequence I really liked from him in the Usman fight. Was he kept trying to set up his straight backhand to a high kick, which is exactly what Leon set Usman up with. And the other tool that can really aid Khamzat here is his straight shots, as I mentioned. We've seen him, he dropped Gilbert Burns with a jab because he caught him right as he was moving in. He dropped Jared Mearshart with a right hand. And of course, because Whittaker utilizes the blitz, that is the perfect opportunity to catch him with a straight shot as he's moving in. I mean, that is how Dricus was able to drop Whittaker and eventually finish him. And Khamzat has shown to have very good timing. There was a very brief moment in the Usman fight where right as Usman moves in, he times a really good short elbow. So we know Khamzat is capable of timing his opponent as they're moving in. And let's not forget the time that Darren Till dropped Robert Whittaker with that pretty much exact same sequence, a short elbow right as he was coming in. But the issue here for me, when you look at Khamzat on the feet against someone like Robert Whittaker, is Khamzat himself is very susceptible to straight shots. Defensively, he doesn't use a ton of head movement. He likes to answer the phone and then turn into you to block the shot. And what we saw from the fight with Usman and his fight with Gilbert, he was susceptible to the straight right and the jab. Well, Whittaker's jab is the basis for his entire game on the feet. He'll duck his head down, move in with the jab, and once he starts catching you with the jab, he'll start timing right hands, he'll start timing his 1-2 high kick he's very famous for. He'll switch it up and enter with a lead left hook instead of the jab, and I just think overall, Khamzat defensively is the issue. We know he's capable of being very dangerous offensively, but he is hittable, and I think Whittaker is going to be the best striker he's ever faced. And from what we've seen of Khamzat on the feet, the way he covers up, he's going to be very susceptible to Whittaker's jab, and that can give him some big problems. The other big potential issue I see here for Khamzat is the leg kicks. Now, Whittaker himself isn't necessarily known for his leg kicks, but I have never seen Khamzat defend one very well. Now, he usually gets around this because of the fact that most of his fights end very quickly and aren't really on the feet. But the two that were, Burns and Usman, they landed every single leg kick they threw. I mean, Khamzat stands very tall, and he has a slightly bladed stance. Whittaker really targeted the leg kicks against Darren Till, and he had a lot of success with it, despite the fact that Darren was standing southpaw.
It's hard to step on.
Yeah, where your leg?
It's hard to stand up on my leg.
Okay.
It's gone.
Okay.
And now we move on to the wrestling. I mean, it is undoubtedly Khamzat's A-game. In theory, this is where you would assume he's going to win this fight. Primarily, the reason why he's so good in that area is his athleticism. He has a really, really fast shot. And he utilizes that fast shot very well. I mean, if there's one way I can describe Khamzat's game, it's pretty Jordan Burroughs-esque in the sense of spamming double legs. And he almost always shoots the second the fight starts. And when he does, he's always looking to connect his hands. And from there, he'll either dump you, but more often he likes to grab the body lock, shuck to the back, lift you in the air, and then attempt to walk around with you. Now, I've always maintained Khamzat at 170 was very, very physically strong. I mean, he was ginormous for that weight class, but at 185, it's yet to be seen if his physicality translates, which, odds are probably not. But the thing to me that really aids to his wrestling being so effective is just how good of an athlete he is. His fight with Kevin Holland is definitely the best example of this. Khamzat shoots the double, circles to the back with the body lock, and Holland immediately starts Granbying, which what he's attempting to do is create a scramble for Khamzat to lose control. And as you see from this frame right here, this is typically where you would lose control. But look at how Khamzat practically cartwheels himself back over the top while still holding on to Holland's body. I mean, that is just 100% ridiculous core strength. But if Chimaev cannot connect his hands off the double leg, he settles for the single. And from there, he likes to lift the leg up and look for trips. Again, when he's fighting welterweights, this can work really well because at the end of the day, lifting that leg up, really hiking it up, that is just dependent on how strong you are. And I think a great parallel is when Gilbert Burns shot a single leg on Khamzat, he could not lift his leg. I mean, the size and the strength difference there was too big. So now looking at Robert Whittaker, he is going to be a lot bigger than the welterweights Khamzat has faced prior, but he's not quite Yoel Romero, Paulo Costa in terms of size. So I wouldn't assert there should be a huge strength disparity here, so just to be safe, we're going to have to look at Whittaker just for what he's got, purely skill for skill. And one aspect of his game that really helps him out against blast doubles is the fact that he keeps both his hands down. And what this allows him to do, as you can see, is get underhooks as he sprawls. It pretty much limits any possibility a wrestler has of getting a hold of his legs. But of course, up against the fence, there's no way you can sprawl. But when you look at Whittaker's fight with Jacare Souza, Souza gets a hold of the double leg. He pulls Whittaker back, which in theory here should be a takedown. But the reason why he's unable to get it is look at how Whittaker controls his wrist the entire time they're rolling. You see, right here, Jacare wants to turn into him and connect his hands, pinning Whittaker down. But because he had control of his wrist the entire time, Souza wasn't able to turn all the way, so Whittaker just rolled all the way through back to his knees. I mean, frankly, just high level stuff here. But there is one area in particular regarding Whittaker's game that I do think Khamzat can exploit in order to get takedowns. It's something I did touch on in my early breakdown for this fight, and that is the fact that Whittaker utilizes the blitz. He likes to hang on the outside and then explode in with strikes. Now, if you can time a takedown perfectly off his entry, I mean, that is the time to put Whittaker flat on his back. Now, this is something that Yoel Romero was looking to do, and he's probably the highest level wrestler that Whittaker has ever fought, Olympic silver medalist. But even with that, I mean, there was one moment he timed it perfectly, got Whittaker flat on his back, held him there, and Robert had to turtle to get back up, which did expose his back. Which against Yoel, that is a bit safer to do, but Khamzat's back takes are genuinely very, very good, and it's something that you should avoid at all costs. But the one other time that Yoel timed the blitz perfectly, he got deep on the shot, and Whittaker's reaction time was, I don't know what else to say other than really, really good. Yoel was deep on this takedown. Whittaker practically ran into it, but he was still able to sprawl. So look, there's no way around it. When we're looking just purely at the wrestling, this is going to be tough for Khamzat. When you look just at the mechanics of freestyle wrestling, Robert Whittaker is pretty much as solid as you can be in MMA. Still though, Khamzat's game plan has to be to time the blitz. It has to be. With how fast and how explosive his shot is, he is 100% capable, if he times it correctly, of putting Whittaker flat on his back. Whittaker's going to have to turtle, and that's where the back take comes in. But speaking of the back takes, this segues perfectly into looking at their jiu-jitsu, in which, like I said, we know exactly what Khamzat tries to do to everybody, which is take your back and strangle you. Now, the best example we have of Whittaker defending the back takes is when he fought, again, Jacare Souza, who's an ADCC champion. From the clinch, Souza hits an inside trip, which causes Whittaker to need to turtle. Souza immediately gets his first hook in, and you're going to see something real slick here right as Jacare brings his other hook in. You look at Whittaker's right leg. He brings it back and around to get Jacare's hook out. And then immediately he uses his elbow. He puts it right against his leg so Jacare can't slide his foot in anymore. And from there he stands right up. And because Jacare only has one hook in, he's going to slide off the top. I mean, that was pretty much as perfect of a defensive sequence as you can get against a guy as good as Jacare. But looking at how Khamzat takes the back to compare it to Whittaker's defense, the one sort of issue here is, most of the time it's been against guys Khamzat's been way bigger, way stronger, and frankly, way more skilled than. Of course, other than Gilbert Burns, Khamzat didn't really get close to a back take there, and then Kamaru Usman. Khamzat was definitely bigger than Usman, but their skill level much more comparable. And what helped Khamzat take his back the way he did was the fact that he put on a frantic pace in that first round. He takes him down with the trip off the single leg, and Usman keeps trying to stand up, but Khamzat would hook his leg and just keep tripping him, keep looking for mat returns over and over again, very frantically, until Usman turtled on both of his knees so he can slide both hooks in, which allowed him to flatten him out. Once he got him flat, now he can maintain the position. And this is something that is so dangerous about Khamzat. When you look at the Jacare versus Whittaker example, now Jacare, of course, was really attempting to take Whittaker's back, but at the same time, he was pacing himself. While as Khamzat, on the other hand, he is saving no energy for the swim back. He was sprinting as hard as he could against Usman. And as we saw, that really affected him later on in the fight. You cannot sprint as hard as you can the entire fight. It's impossible. It doesn't matter how good your cardio is. That just goes against human anatomy. But sprinting the way he did allowed him to get to the positions he wanted to. He was very close to finishing Usman, and it gave him a 10-8 round, which allowed him to win the fight. So the question is, would it be smart for Khamzat to sprint the second the bell rings? Well, he has stated himself that is who he is and that is what he does, no matter what.
And I asked Chimaev, I said, do you attack Kamaru Usman like you do all these other guys? He goes, brother, what else would I do? Right. It's what he does, and he'll fight in that way every single time.
And honestly, while it is a huge risk, when you look at how skillful Whittaker is at defending takedowns, defending the back, just how well-rounded he is, might not be a bad idea, to be honest. We know Khamzat's Darce is really good. He's dangerous when he takes your back. If he just goes for broke, puts it all on the line round one, I really think that is his best chance of winning this fight and getting a finish. I don't think in any other area he can win a decision comfortably against someone as skillful as Whittaker. Unless he really tries to switch up his style and game plan, which we've never seen him do. So to me, Whittaker is going to be the smart pick for this fight. Now, if you want to try to make some money, I would suggest live betting after round one. If Khamzat goes all out, gets Whittaker in a bad position, but is unable to finish him, the odds are going to jump in Khamzat's favor. And that would be a good time to bet Whittaker. But also, I wouldn't be shocked if Khamzat goes for broke and finds a finish. You never know.